So I just wanted to do a quick, hopefully quick video here about how I get into the state akin to sleep. Um, if you're familiar with Neville Goddard, of course, state akin to sleep, that's the part that Neville talked about right before you fall asleep, right after you wake up, that twilight zone kind of between being awake and asleep. And that's the point, like when you're, at least my experience, that when you're first falling asleep, and yeah, right as you're falling asleep, and kind of your mind starts maybe wandering like all over the place, right as you're falling asleep. That's kind of that point. And with Neville Tech, the getting in that state akin to sleep and staying there for formal sessions, that's where you want to do like your imagined scenes and all that from. And a lot of people I've noticed take uh, take SATs or state akin to sleep, SATs as I like to call it, and they make it seem like it's some sort of a mythical, magical thing when it feels like that when you're in it. Sort of for me when you go the full route. But a lot of people, what they miss is that SATs also happens just during the day, like when you're just daydreaming. Sometimes you're actually in SATs because your mind is not engaged fully. So it's kind of a lighter, what I consider a lighter form of SATs. But enough of all that stuff. So the way, being a hypnotist slash hypnotherapist, the way I do it is I use a self-trancing method, which kind of learned from a modified version modified from what I learned from John Cleesaddle, which his website is wizardoftrance.com. If you're into hypnosis and want to learn more about his approach to hypnosis itself, it's wizardoftrance.com. Um, Basically what I do when I get into sets, there's two ways I do it, but it's the same process, but there's two different routes I go. So what I'll do, it's like a three-step thing really to get into sets. Step one is you imagine, not really imagine, but so step one for the okay. So it's a hand or foot version basically is how you start, but I'll just do a hand because I'm not going to stick my foot up here on the camera. Um, so step one, what you would do is you just pay attention to the sensations in your hand. And of course, so I guess to preface that, this is when like you're like lying in bed, gonna do a Neville session, or sitting in a chair, whatever. If you happen to have a Burbis chair, it's a little Neville joke there. But make sure you're in a comfortable position where you're not going to be disturbed. Blah blah blah, all that. And just step one is you just pay attention to the sensations in your hand. So your eyes closed, eyes open, whatever you want. Doesn't matter to me. Just pay attention, and you're not going to try to make anything happen here, but what you want to do is just pay attention and notice when the sensations in your hand start to shift. So it's almost like it's hard to explain, but it's almost like you're willing it to relax, but you don't want to actually go to that level of intensity. You want to just notice when it relaxes. Just let it happen as it happens. And just the fact that you're actually looking for that makes it start to happen anyway. So step one is just notice basically a change of sensation in your hand where it starts to feel relaxed and it starts to feel a little good. And then from there, once you really feel that, step two is just imagine that feeling spreading up your arm just as quickly as you can, and it still be where you can actually feel it, and you're not just rushing through it. So step one, hand, get that relaxed feeling, good feeling. Step two, get that feeling to spread up your arm. And what you want to do is get it so you can, by the time step two is done, you set the elbow. You're feeling it from the tips of your fingers up to your elbow. And enjoy that for a few seconds. And step three is you just let that go all the way up to your shoulder. Same deal. So at the end of step three, it's your whole arm. And what I was talking about with the foot is you can do it with the foot up to your knee, then up to your hip bone, or both, both feet, both legs, up all the way up. I do it just depending on the mood. I do either way. But see, the point of all this is that by the time you get up to here, you've used your imagination and sensation three times, and so that's enough to actually kickstart what hypnotists would call like a trance type thing. So it's not really hypnosis, and it really depends who you ask. But you actually, by the time you get up there, you're actually relaxing and you're changing your state anyway. So you're relaxing more and getting that feeling all the way up to your shoulder. And then so there's actually a fourth step that I added in fairly recently is once I'm done with that, I'll imagine that feeling creep across my chest, and so by the time it hits my heart cavity here, when it hits the heart, I just imagine that feeling. Imagine my heart taking that relaxing feeling and just start pumping it all over the body, all over the place. Because it actually takes just a little over a minute for blood to pump all the way through your body. That's how quick blood pumps through your body. So just imagine it going. Of course, in my imagination, it doesn't take a whole minute. I'm just like bam, because by that time, stuff that you imagine, you can actually start to notice. I mean, um, it's one thing you can actually try is when you get up to the end of step three, where it's arm all the way to shoulder, you can actually at that point imagine that your arm is completely heavy and it's just so heavy that it won't move. And if you can actually imagine that and make it true for yourself, your arm won't move. You can actually try to move your arm, and it won't be able to move. It'll almost feel like you could move it, but you don't feel like it. But basically, the point there is if you do that, the arm won't move. But of course, the point of all this is how to get to stats. And so I imagine that step four, get it to the heart and pump it all over so my whole body feels that. And it's without effort, really. I mean, it's hard to explain that part, but it's not hard to do. It's with ease, with effort, or without effort, effortless. And so imagine you've got that relaxing feeling all over your body then, and any tension that's in your body that you notice, that relaxing feeling will actively seek those tension spots and release them. So your whole body's just relaxed, and you get your body relaxed, and you get to a point of what Robert Monroe would call Focus 10 in his Gateway Voyage stuff. Focus 10, which is mind awake, body asleep, which is basically what SATS is. It's all the same, really, in my opinion, anyway. And at that point, you're got it done enough where you can actually take whatever scene that you've constructed before for your desire and imagine that scene, imagine it, seeing it through your own eyes, all that stuff. And from there, that's your session. And I actually, sometimes I like actually getting into the state akin to sleep or stats. I like to get in there with nothing, no objective in mind. I just like to get in there and feel it, just just rest there. It's makes for a really good power nap if nothing else. But it's really cool because it's just a nice reset, and that covers that.